So we're in pretty good shape as far as our typography and color choices. Please do make sure that you're choosing unique colors for yourself. So one of the things about having our wireframe to follow is that yes, our website should be laid out the same, but our typeface choices and our color choices should all be unique. So try not to follow along exactly with what I've been doing as far as the color values, and especially with typefaces, so that you're starting to build something that's a little bit more unique to your individual aesthetic. But overall, if you followed along with this, you're starting to get some pretty decent things in place here where it at least doesn't look like a default plain vanilla HTML site anymore. So the next thing we want to handle as part of our typography, but it's important enough that it gets its own video here, is link states. So with links, normally when you hover over them or when you click on them or when you've visited them already, you get some sort of feedback from the browser as the end user that these do something. And right now these don't do anything. When I hover over them, they're just static. And so that's not really that interesting. And really for web design, the smaller details like the interactions that we experience are way more important. And so we can see here, nothing is really happening for any of these. And we could actually do a lot by just adding some link states to these. So what I'm going to do is very quickly save my current version of my style sheet. And then I'm going to switch this from being along the bottom back to being docked along the right-hand side. And underneath my typography here, I'm actually going to do this at the very bottom, this link states here. And that's because of the specificity of things. So I want to put my link states at the bottom because it'll be easier for me to override some other things that may be taking place in the text. But what I really want to do is define link states for every area that's treated differently. So I should have unique link states for these 4 buttons across the top because they're treated the same. But then I should have a set of 4 different link states for this button because it's completely the opposite of these, so they should not be treated the same. Then likewise down here, I've got these links that are on the page and they're on a white background, so they're completely different from both of these as well. So they should be treated differently. And then in the footer, each of these should be treated differently as well, just based on that class name that we gave them. So we gave the style guide and all 3 of these that same link state for planning documentation, so they can all be the same. And then our HTML5 and CSS3 buttons, these technologies actually have their own brands. So HTML5 has this bright orange color for its brand, and CSS3 has this kind of a sky blue color for its brand. So we want to reference those. We just don't want to do it in a way that's disruptive to the aesthetic. So in these cases, this would be better if it turned that color when I hovered over it, not to have like different colored buttons in the footer. That'd be really distracting. So we want to keep everything consistent when they're at rest. And then when we hover over them, like for them to light up in their brand color. When we click on them, it would be nice if they did something akin to lighting up or appearing to change from whatever the hover color was. And if we visited them, we want them to have a different state as well. So link states are a little tricky, so we're going to do a whole video just for them. And the first thing you want to do is just get your base link states. That's going to be these, the ones that show up in just regular text. We're going to start out by styling those. So we're going to first call out A, and we're going to open up some curly braces, and we're going to choose a color value. And for now, I can leave that color value blank. But you don't want to leave it that way for long because it'll break your CSS. If you don't have a value in here, nothing after it is going to work. So make sure that we declare them before today. But just in building these out, I'm going to build out 4 different link states. And I need to do it in the right order. So I'm just going to paste that a few times. And there's a mnemonic device that you can use to remember the order that these need to be declared in. The mnemonic device is love, hate. And we could type that in our comment here. We could type LOVEHATE. And the capital letters that I've typed here are what these begin with. So the ones that actually matter are the L, the V, the H, and the A. The L stands for just the link, just the plain letter A, anchor tag. V stands for visited. So the next one that we need to declare is a colon and the word visited. The H stands for hover. colon, hover. And then A stands for active, colon, active. Okay, so we need to declare those in this order. And then we want to move from the most general links to the most specific links, and from the top of the page to the bottom of the page. So let's begin with these. And I could decide that I want for my standard, just plain, links at rest in my text to be, a blue still makes sense, but I kind of do want to at least move away from the just the standard blue. I think I want to use a darker shade of this color or a lighter shade of this color. Since I've already been dealing with shades with this one, let's take a look at this one and see. Oh, it starts to get very purple once we move up, doesn't it? Not sure how I'm going to feel about that. Let's actually go here. And let's move further down here. Maybe to this color. And I'm going to make that just the standard resting state of my links. So I can see they tend to blend in a lot more here, so I especially want to have some sort of feedback that it's the right thing. I've already decided that I think it would be good for them to, on active. Active means when you click them, when you click and hold. I think this would be good for the active state. So I'm going to change that here. And then I just need a hover and a visited. So let's see, when we hover over them, we're going to want them to lighten up a little bit. Let's see. I think maybe that one that I had might be a good choice there. I think this one might be a step off in one direction or the other, but for now, put it there. And now we just need whatever color they're going to be once you've visited them. So usually that makes it look like it's spent, right? So I could use like a light gray color. I'm just going to choose kind of a middle gray by typing in C 3 times. And that's going to turn, that's a little bit too light actually. Let's go for maybe 3 6s as the visited color. That's right here. And now we can kind of get a sense for how these work. So now you can see, instead of just them just sitting there when I interact with them, I've got the standard color. And when I hover over them, they light up, right? And then when I click them, they light up even more. And then after I've visited them, they're going to turn this gray color to let me know that I've already interacted with them. I don't want to click anything until I save, because I'm going to lose all my work if I do. So the first thing I'm going to do is a save as and overwrite this current style sheet. And now I can reload the page and I can interact with these. And in here, we've already been given one that is meant to be a visited link, right? So we'll click on that and we can see that they all, these appear spent now. So far, all of these are looking good. We can see some inconsistencies taking place in here. But the reason we want to have different link states is because these have unintended consequences elsewhere, right? I just called out every single link to follow these color prescriptions, basically. So up here, I have a problem, right? Because now my visited links for these have turned that gray color, and that does not work in the context of this color selection. So I need to make sure that I have link states that are different for this one, and different for this one as well, and different for these. So I should be saying by the end of this, you should have at least maybe 20 different declarations in your link states. You'll see why in just a minute. But let's go ahead and start working on the nav bar. So what I can do for that is I can copy all 4 of these because they're already written the way I need them to be and in the order I need them to be. And with those 4, all I need to do is get more specific. So I can put my cursor in front of the letter A for each of those 4. And can hold down Option. I was holding down Command, but I want 4 cursors so that at one time I can type header links. Right now, I don't have to drill back down to the nav UL LI. I can probably just select these by selecting all anchor elements inside of a header, except for the fact that that might impact any links in these articles. Now, for now, we don't have any links in the articles, but it might not be a bad idea to get a little bit more specific by at least adding the word nav. That way it won't select anything in the article. And then I want to choose colors that are specific for this use case for these. So right now, this color, we already declared somewhere else. So we're probably going to want to grab that. You see this header, nav, UL, LIA. This is basically the L, the love of this one, right? But what I can do is just move the color of the link state out of here and keep all the other typography that I've done there. Of course, how we organize these is also subject to debate. You just want to make sure that you have some sort of system that you're following so it's easier to find them. I'm going to come here and declare these to be blue. And then when they are visited, I don't want this color. I would like something that appears to possibly be that same kind of a blue, but maybe a lighter. So let's come back here again to our tints. And perhaps when they're visited, they get really light. Maybe we come all the way up here. See, that starts to look better. I might even need to go lighter than that. And then my hover color is this darker blue. So when I hover over them, see, that I feel like should be kind of opposite. So I could still use this hover color, but I'm going to use that as my base color. And then I'm going to change, I'm just going to flip-flop them. To where now I can see them at rest, and then when I hover, and then this active color, it's not going to look right here. I actually would rather go with a white than that. I might choose something different later. So I told you can just type the word white for that color, but the hex value for it is F 6 times. And if it's the same number or letter all 6 times, you can actually just type it 3, and it's a shorthand that you can use. So that looks better to me for that. Something is overriding this color here. Do you see that? Where something is more specific for this particular link than the others. I'm not sure quite what it is just yet. We'll keep looking for it as we go. But really, they should all be the same right now, so we'll figure it out as we go, though. Okay, so now we should have, decent link states for these. Let's inspect this one and see. Why it might be getting a different color. Oh, that's interesting. Look, it's getting a color specified from line 166, so it's actually still getting the default. Okay. I'm not quite sure why that is yet, but I will continue to troubleshoot. So it's getting this one as well as this one. All right, let's save. It could just be a caching thing. Save and reload. And nope, it's still doing it. It's getting that darker color for some reason. And you see now our hover color here is messed up, right? Because if we use the hover color that was the same as the background color, then we're going to have an issue. So I'm going to keep thinking about this as we're working through, see if I can figure out what's going on with that. But for now, let's work on styling this button as the next one. So I'm going to copy all 4 of these again. So I'm getting, each time I'm grabbing each of the 4 link states and making sure that they're staying in order. And this time I'm going to put my cursor in front of nav, and I'm going to hold down Option, four times, so 1, 2, 3, 4, where I have my LOVEHATE, right? And I'm going to get rid of header nav for these, and I'm just going to call out the button element. But in this case, the button element is part of the anchor element. It's actually applied to the anchor element, so I need to call that out a little differently. I need to first call out the anchor element, and then I need to do a .btn with no spaces in between. When you do it this way with no spaces in between, it means find all anchor elements that have a class of button. If there was a space in between, it would mean find anything inside of an anchor element that has a class of button. And if I put the class of button before, it would mean anchor elements inside of something that has a class of button. So those are all, they look, very subtly different, but they're actually extremely different depending on the context. So the next thing I need to do is come up to where I already had that button class right here. I might want to just move that to my link states. So I'm going to cut it, and that's really this one, right, where I could call out just button right there, and I could get a lot of those things happening there. But now I need to deal with this hover color especially, because it's getting the same color that it had. And I probably want to choose something that's going to be just a little bit different, right? So when I hover over this, I might even want to change the background to something else, as well as the typeface color. Or I might just want to change the background. You do have some choices here. I just want to see you using link states. So what I might do for this one is let it keep the same foreground color when I hover over it. But in order to have it a slightly different context and still have it interact in some way, I might change the background on hover to be white. So then we still get some sort of difference here. And it starts to make things, a little bit more interactive. But you can see then too that when I click, it turns white, right? Because these do. So I need to change that as well. So on hover, or on active, I can't use this white color, right? So I'm going to do this. This might be a good place to bring in that teal color that we were using in the body links here. So I could come and find that hex value here for this active color. So maybe instead of white here, I put in that teal color. And so that starts to, it's actually a little bit too bright because you still can't read it after that. So it was a nice thought, but I don't think that's going to work out. Let's see. Maybe this would be a good time to start checking out some of these purpley colors. I don't want to go too crazy with it, but so let's see, that's going to be our active state for our button. Let's go ahead and replace that value. And again, I'm pretty sure I'm not going to like these, but this at least gives me somewhere to start. Okay, that's not too bad. That's a lot more subtle than I thought it was going to be. Maybe a little too subtle, but we're going to leave it for now. So you see, now I have these behaving differently. I have a different link state for these versus this, depending on, the color context, the environment that they're in. And the same thing here, where these behave a little bit differently as well. So now the last ones for me to deal with are the footer. And the footer is going to be a little bit different because the instructions tell us that we should be using the brand color for HTML5 on hover, CSS3 on hover, and then the planning links each have their own, as a group, have a different color for hover. But let's go ahead and get started on them. So I am not going to copy my button ones this time because there's, actually it's not a bad idea, I suppose. Copy my latest ones. I could also put comments in here to separate these, which would probably be a really good idea. And so now I could grab, let's see. These are a little tricky because I want them all to have the same resting state and I want them all to have the same visited color, but I want their hover and their active states to be different depending on their class name. So let me see, for me to go ahead and declare the visited ones to be that gray color, I could do footer nav. Let's see, footer nav A visited. And let me try just that, a darker gray color. The closer you get to 0 is the closer to black. The closer you get to F is white. So it goes from 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, A, B, C, D, E, F. Those are the hex values. All zeros is black. All F's is white. So if I want a dark gray, probably a 333 might be a good choice. Might be a little too much. Let me try maybe 555. Right, that's pretty decent. And that shows all of these looking kind of spent. The CSS one is not because I haven't actually visited it yet. But we're getting closer now. So I want all of these to have that state. And I want them all to have the same resting state. Okay, and we had also decided that we wanted all of the footer links to be black at their resting state. So that's been declared somewhere further up here too in the footer. Right here, this color of black. So let's take that away and let's move that down here into our link states, to where instead of that navy blue color as a resting state, we can do black. Right now it's not applying because this still says button and there's no class, nothing with a class of button in the footer. And if I want this to actually take, I need to be just as specific as I was up there earlier. So I still need to do a footer A at the very least. Looks like that's working right now. My CSS button is black. All the rest of these are gray as though they've been visited, but the CSS button is not. So, and they're all visited because they are all recursive links. So they've all got a hashtag in them. So either that or we have actually visited them, like the validation service. But now I need to deal with the hover and active states, and those each need to be just a little bit different. So I'm given a little bit of information on that in the assignment instructions. I'm given the hex value for the hover state for each one. So for HTML5, and I'm going to need to declare these in the right spot in this style sheet in order for them to take, and that might feel a little bit tricky. So I'm going to first work on the hover state, and then I'm going to work on the active state. So for this one, I'm going to do, instead of a button hover, I'm going to do a HTML5 hover, and I'm going to get rid of the background color, and I'm going to add the hex value that I was given in the instructions, which is HTML5's brand color. So now when I hover over it, you see how it turns that nice bright orange color. And then I'm going to do the same thing for CSS3 because I'm given that value. So what I can do is just copy and paste my class values there and change. So I'm going to do the hover values all in order of CSS3. And once I do that, my CSS3 button does the same thing. So you can already see how this is just getting to be a little bit more visually appealing. So this should be an area of CSS that as a designer, you're more willing to embrace. Now we need the last one, which is the class of planning, and that's going to get all the rest of the links that are in there. So I'm going to put that right after CSS3. And change this to planning, and I'm given a hex value for that as well, which happens to be the brand color of Gliffy where the diagrams are being made. Okay, and so now all the rest of these hover blue. Now, of course, our style guide is not on Gliffy, but it's a planning document, so we could still group it in there together. And save my changes before I forget. Doing a save as and overwriting what's there. And now I just need to do the active states for those in the same way. So I'm going to have different active states to where these hover, and when I click on them, they turn into a lighter version of whatever their brand color is. So in order to fix those, that'll account for all of the footer links. So I don't need this A active that I copied before, but I could paste those three and hold down my Option or Alt key. I got the wrong one there. If I hold down Shift and Option, it gets rid of a cursor that I don't want. And I'm just going to delete the word hover from these three selectors and write active. And now I can go to my color picker and I can actually put this hex value in and I can get a tint of that. So I'm just going to replace this one with that HTML5 color, come to the tints, and right now I'm here. So if I want it to be a little lighter, I can choose a few steps up in my hierarchy. And I'm going to replace the active value with that. And what that achieves is when I hover over it, it turns this darker orange. And then when I click it, it lightens up. I'm going to do the same thing for my CSS3 active link. So I'm going to paste it in here. And go to its tints. And I'm going to move about 3 up from it as well. Something enough to where it's visible at that small scale. And then I'm going to do the same thing for the brand color for my planning documents. And move about 3 up for it. Replace it with that lighter value. Do a right click, save as. And I can see that I've got these different link states working now as well. So the last thing I want to do is clear my cache and reload the page and just see if everything's applying like it should be. And if not, I need to do some troubleshooting. So it looks like the resting state of these might not be black like I'm wanting it to be. And I think maybe I did that somewhere further up, didn't I? Well, no. Yeah, so I've got a little bit of troubleshooting to do, something to do with the specificity of it. And something to do with this one as well, that resting link there. I think it's becoming the visited state because we're actually on that page. Or no, I know it's not been visited because that one's still coded in the HTML as being test.html. So that's why it's acting different, because I haven't clicked on that link. So I can actually use that as an opportunity to test. If I click on this and then I come back, I guess it's still saying I haven't visited it because it doesn't exist anymore. I deleted it. So let's see what happens if, let's see. Let's check our footer real quick. These are definitely not black. And I think it's because of the hashtag as well. So it's assuming that I've already visited them because I'm on this very page. So let's try it from, maybe if we go to template.html. Oh, well. Let's check on template real quick. We haven't done that in a while. See how it's looking. So this is kind of interesting. You see how we have some different typography use cases here, and I can see that my heading 1s and 2s really still need some help. And that this might not be the best typeface for that, right? But I can see my navigation bar has already fallen into place. And my footer links are looking pretty good too. So for these, they're doing a little bit different. They are showing up as black if I haven't visited them. I might still have a little bit of work to do with that. But overall, this is a beginning web design class. I think that we're moving in the right direction. We do have a few loose ends to tie up. So I would encourage you to go back and scrutinize your typography a little bit more. Make some different decisions if you need to. And keep in mind that if you do that, if you're using variables, so if you use variables for your colors as well, If you're using variables, then you only need to change it in one place instead of in all the places where I've gone in and used those hex values. So for example, here, if I decide this serif face is no good, I can go choose another one from Google Fonts. I will have to change the selector for it in the head of both my template page and my style guide page. This third one here, I'm going to have to adjust if I'm not using that typeface anymore so that my other one shows up. But as long as I do that, then I can come here and I can just change the way it's being called out as well. And I can make different choices and see how they'll change all around. So go back over and just kind of look over all of these things, but make sure that, on the technical side of things, that you have the different link states for each different area of the page, and that you have your typography set up using rims so that you can make one adjustment and you have that one base value that you're referencing. Make sure all of your navigation is evenly spaced and centered. All of the things that we've been doing to this point, I'm really going to be looking more at the technical aspects of it than I am the stylistic aspects right now. And I will expect those to evolve over time as well, though. As you spend more time with this, you're going to come up with better solutions and you're going to find things that look better.